Welcome everyone. This is the All Sports Betting Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss. I'm joined as ever by Kevin Harper, and we're previewing the Cricket World Cup 2019. From Lords on Friday, it's Pakistan versus Bangladesh in what is technically the last, competitive match before the semi-finals and finals. So, Kev, the end of this group stage is very much upon us. How are you feeling?
Well, we was at 80s music on Wednesday, wasn't we? We've moved into 2000s music on Thursday, Steve, because life is a roller coaster at the minute with this tournament, and hopefully we can finish strongly with these last three group games and nail the finals and come out of it okay. I should just add the first two outright bets from that outright preview have landed, so all's not terribly bad, is it? So no. Hoping for a good end to the tournament.
Yeah, there was some, for those who did listen to the outright podcast, there's been some bets in that have been going pretty well. So unfortunately, a couple of those that aren't going to land are Bangladesh. I think we've been a bit unlucky with the weather with them potentially. Otherwise, this might have been a decider for fourth place for both sides. As it happens, Pakistan can still technically qualify, although it would take an absolute miracle for them to overhaul the run rate. The way I've read it, that they have to win the match by at least 308 runs if they're batting first. That's never happened in a one-day international before, and they cannot qualify if they bowl first. So if they lose the toss and Bangladesh bat, then that's the end of them. Good night.
Yeah, it's the end of them anyway. They're not winning by 300 and whatever runs.
They're not. We just say, they end up batting first. Are they going to have to go for it, aren't they? Or are they just going to have to treat this just as they're out and they're just going to try and win the game?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. There's no point in going for it. Realistically, they have to score, 550?
You'd have to be knocking on the door of at least 450, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But there's enough youngsters in this side to have an impact in this match. For it to mean something. One or two players playing for their careers as well. Mohammed Hafiz certainly being one. Keeps on getting out. Caught in the deep, doesn't he? Might be in the latter stages of his career, but if he doesn't have a performance here, for example, the chop could come quite quickly. But you've got the likes of Shaheen Shah Afridi, who I'm going to come on to in a little while, Imad Wasim, Shadab Khan, the two openers, Babar Azam. They're all class acts. They've got one last chance to show themselves on the world stage. And bearing in mind that this lot don't get the chance to play in the IPL and other leading tournaments like they should do, this is a good occasion for them to just showcase their talents, as it is for Bangladesh, who themselves have got some really good young players mixed in with the experienced players. I'd like to see Shakib go out with a real bang here. His tournament deserves that. I'd like to see Bangladesh go out with a real bang here. All the bets that we've had on them, like you said, are ones that got away. If that run out against New Zealand hadn't been bodged, if they hadn't been rained out against Sri Lanka, if they had 20 more runs against India, it could have all been a different story, but it's not. And I think we're going to get a good game of cricket anyway, because these two meet regularly, don't they? Whether it's in this tournament, whether it's in T20 tournament, whether it's in the Asia Cup, they're regular foes. So, sticking a sort of psychological blow on the other might still have a bit of impact.
So this match is from Lords, and one of your bets for the game is over 533 runs. When you're expecting the wicket to play well, you're expecting a high-scoring match.
Yeah, absolutely. The only game really that wasn't particularly high-scoring was Australia against New Zealand. Well, find me a New Zealand game that has been high-scoring. You're gonna have to dig pretty deep, aren't you? But to be fair, New Zealand haven't really conceded many runs, have they? The innings to England apart. So maybe that was an anomaly rather than the norm. Certainly when Pakistan played here against South Africa, there were plenty of runs. Pakistan put up over 300. Even South Africa pushed 250, and they've hardly scored a run all tournament. And the Australia-England game was a mixture of, a really good score from Australia, and or just that Australian attack really that we're not going to see in this match. And yeah, I mean, I expect the runs to flow. I've mentioned a few times on this podcast how the new Lord's groundsman is the guy who used to do the wickets at the Ageas Bowl, the Hampshire ground. They were always fantastic batting wickets. See absolutely no reason why that's going to change here. And you know, for 533.5, we're only looking at 267 as a first innings score if that's chased down. But you know, I'd be surprised given the way that these two teams bat or have been batting if whoever bats first doesn't score 300, and if they do, you're only looking for 235 in the second innings, aren't you? So I think there's a lot of scope here. You know, you've got two teams that bat pretty deep. You just got to look at Pakistan's last game against Afghanistan last weekend. Imad Wasim got them out of trouble and he bats 7. Shadab Khan played well. Wahad Riaz at number 9's had some good innings for Pakistan, hasn't he? And then on the flip side, you look at Bangladesh's last game against India, then number 9, Saifuddin, ended up scoring 50, didn't he? So they both bat deep. Bangladesh's seam attack has gone the distance, so that should get the scoring off to a good start. Bangladesh much of the better side with the bat than they are with the ball. So yeah, I just think this line's a little bit too low. I'm surprised we're getting a line under 550 at Lord's, Steve. I really am. I accept that it's a dead rubber, but I still think it'll be a competitive enough game. I don't think either team are going to want to leave this World Cup having put up, you know, something 160 or 170. I think there's more to both of them than that.
Yeah, plenty of runs to be piled up, and you're going to be in the Bangladesh individual batting market as well here. Raheem score over 28.5 runs.
Yeah, you've got to shop around for this one because there are a multitude of lines for him. I've seen as high as 35.5, which probably justified. He's got a cracking record against Pakistan. Maybe not early on in his career, but in the last 5 appearances against Pakistan, he scores 51 not out, 106, 65, 49 not out, and 99. So he's obviously in really good nick, and that's kind of the time in his career where he's, you know, been established and been a really good batsman. If you go through his innings on this tour, the warm-up game against India, he made 90 not out. Sorry, 90, he was out in that game. He started the tournament with 78, 19 against New Zealand, but that would have been a lot more if Shakib hadn't dispersed of his talents and run him out. Then 44, he only made 1 against the West Indies. That was very much the anomaly. The norm is that he fills his boots. 102 not out following that. Then 83 against Afghanistan, and he made 24 against India, but he looked really, really good against India. And I don't know if he didn't see the square leg fielder or he just didn't expect him to be so agile, but he played a sweep shot, didn't he, that went straight to him, and he was out on 24, but there was a hell of a lot more runs in him that day as well. So yeah, he seems to like this bowling attack. When these two teams met in the Asia Cup last year, it was pretty much this bowling attack. The only difference was Mohammed Amir didn't play in that game, and he'll play in this game, but he's not likely to face too much of him batting at 4. The line looks pretty low, 28.5. I toyed with the performance, but the lowest performance I can find is 42. You need 14 extra runs if he doesn't contribute with the gloves. He might contribute with the gloves, but you know, not at Lord's. I wouldn't want to take that. So I'm happy to take the runs line, particularly with them statistics that I've just read out.
So on to another bet for you, and it's the Pakistan top bowler market. You're going with Afridi in this one. What price is he at?
4-1 Steve, yeah, which I think is a fair price. He's only played Bangladesh once in his ODI career. That was last year in the Asia Cup. He took 2 for 47 there. That was in the UAE. On wickets probably wouldn't suit seamers. This place is going to suit him though, isn't it? Particularly with the slope, which we've not really spoken about too much on these podcasts, but I guess at Lord's you don't need to. He's famous for it. His last 2 digs, 3 for 28, 4 for 47 against Afghanistan last week. Mohammed Amir's just teetering on the edge of falling away. He hasn't nailed too many wickets with the new ball, has he? And teams are getting into positions where they're not having to slog against Pakistan at the death. And actually, even if Bangladesh do get into that position, they've not got no rabbits in their side, have they? As they showed against India the other day. Really like, since he come into the side, I've really liked Shaheen Shah Afridi. England, to be fair, clobbered him all around the country in that ODI series at the start of the year. But he's only a young lad, and he's obviously bounced back well. And actually, I've noticed a few times on commentary, Wadzi Makram said that the young lads sought advice from him. And if you're learning from Wadzi Makram, you're learning from one of the best that's ever lived. So he certainly seems to have taken that advice on board. As I say, in his last 2 games, 3 for 28 against New Zealand, where he was all over the batsman in that game, and 4 for 47 up at Yorgaf against Afghanistan. If he keeps bowling like that, he should be okay. There's a couple of walking wickets at the top of this Bangladesh order, isn't there? Saka doesn't look like he can get it off the square right now. So yeah, if you can do that and then come back at the right time, who knows? 4-1, Betfair that is. You're okay to take it at Betfair. There's none of that nonsense about economy rates and all of that. If you tie, you tie, and that's just how I like these markets. So yeah, I'll take the young Pakistan left arm. It wouldn't be a massive surprise if the likes of Wahab Riaz, maybe even Mohammed Amir himself is left out. They've got a pacey young quick who's not been seen in this tournament yet. Mohammed has named. You'd think he'll get a game. It's a bit harsh to carry someone for 5 or 6 weeks going around a country and not offering him a token gesture game in a dead rubber, isn't it? So I'd expect him to come in for one of the more established seamers. And who knows, if it is for Amir, happy days, because he's the favourite in the market. So yeah, I think he's a decent price at 4s, particularly if one of them senior players don't play.
What about in terms of a match result then? I mean, Bangladesh look a bit of a juicy price here, really. I mean, 1 to 2 Pakistan favourites. To be honest, if I were pricing this up, I'd have it as a pick 'em, really. Maybe Pakistan slight favourites. But, is there a bit of juice there on Bangladesh for those who are interested?
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't be at all surprised if Bangladesh win the game. If this was a competitive game, I'd have been on them. Well, I wouldn't have been. That's a lie, because obviously I'm on them for every other market. But, if I wasn't, if it was a one-off competitive game, I'd be back in Pakistan, back in Bangladesh and what we've seen. However, I mentioned earlier in the week, I'm no fan of betting on the match results of dead robbers. I went against myself on Wednesday, didn't I? On Thursday, and took Afghanistan, and that proved to be a pretty pointless exercise. Once bitten, twice shy, Steve. I'm not getting involved in the match market, but those who are interested in Bangladesh, I certainly can't put you off.
Yeah, I was bitten the other day in this dead rubbers, and I'm not getting involved in them at all. So, well, that's the end of this one. We've got a couple more dead rubbers, sadly, to
I'm not so sure they will be dead rubbers, Steve. I think teams are queuing up to play New Zealand in the semi-finals. So the Australia game, at least, I think that'll be competitive. Maybe the India game, which I think is the earlier of the two, isn't it? So, I think they'll both be competitive. Both India and Australia are actually playing for something. I think it's a massive advantage, as we highlighted earlier in the week. Massive advantage to finish top of the table. So yes, they're dead rubbers in terms of the fact that we know the top 4, but we still don't know who finishes top spot. So actually, Saturday should be a better day than what we've seen the last couple of days.
All right, we'll look forward to previewing those, and we'll see you for those then, Kev.
Looking forward to it, mate. All the best.
Cheers.